My colleague Amanda White is joining me. We'll share our personal stories of our own leader approaches, as well as some of the great feedback we receive from our clients.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Amanda. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I know in the first two sessions of the Connected Approach podcast, we talked about my perspectives on the leader approach and your perspectives on the leader approach. And as we've continued to work with clients and partners, the questions come up, what do we get? What do we get when we follow the leader approach?
Yeah.
And what are the positive outcomes of following the leader approach? So you and I have had an interesting background on that, and I think some words we've used have been a little, interesting for both of us. So I'd like to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because it is one of those things that we want to make sure that whatever program we're doing or whatever, training that we're involved in, that there is that feel that there is a, return on investment. If you could kind of term it that way. So, yeah, let's talk about that.
Hmm.
So, what do leaders get out of this, and why should they? I think part of why we ask this is because we do believe it's hard work. It's maybe what people feel is the touchy feely stuff, but it actually is the absolute most important work that leaders can do. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I really want this to be a back and forth. I know we had a conversation before the podcast that we thought to ourselves like, oh, we should have had that recorded because it was, the organic conversation that that we enjoy. And I think there was some some creative tension there. But
Yeah,
first and foremost, starting with leading yourself, and I think this is something that you and I are always working on, is you get to be the person that you aspire to be.
right.
And so that's work that I know, through our coaching experience and through our coaching practice. And as we coach with other coaches, in addition to coaching with our clients, it's something that we're working on together, and for ourselves. So I think that's positive impact number one, is that you get to continue to become the person you aspire to become. So I think first and foremost, that's the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and what I always think of in that regard is how freeing it is to not feel like you have to contort. Like a contortionist is like always like, shoving their body into, very awkward and uncomfortable like positions. When you're not fulfilling your quest and you're not being your most authentic self, which is just calming when you can just be you, then inevitably you're going to be tired and just worn out because you're constantly contorting yourself into being something that you think you need to be or that you feel like you have to, do because of some expectation. So, um, yes, I
yeah,
think if you can get people to kind of see it in that way.
yeah, my favorite comedian said that the first time he went to the gym, he just didn't bother to ask anyone what the equipment was. He was feeling a little self-conscious, and so he just got into one of the pieces of the machine, and he was grinding and grinding and grinding. And the manager came over to him and said, "Sir, would you get out of the painter scaffolding?" Because right,
Yeah,
we all go through life like that. We're
right.
like, I'm not going to ask anybody anything. I'm just going to figure out, how to contort myself into what everyone else is expecting of me and just start to grind.
Exactly.
And you realize you're not even in the equipment. You're trying to work out on the painter's scaffolding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Um,
wonderful, wonderful analogy.
so, in unfortunately, I got a golden doodle that is staring me in the face. I'm gonna step out and I'm gonna come right back. Excuse
This is Zoom land, as I'm waiting for Chris to come back, as my phone's ringing and his golden doodle is begging for his time. That's what happens.
Sorry about that. And this is why I'm typically holed up in the spare bedroom. And I think he's going to be growling to come back in too. So I tried to set everything aside. But so I think so we've talked about what it does for us individually, what it does for the person individually. When you bring that to work, when you bring that to your leadership of others, and they see your grounded, authentic self,
Yeah,
you're able to connect and trust. One, connect at a deeper level, and two, trust quicker with the people that you're leading. And you and I have experienced that very personally in our own leadership experiences, and one, the feedback we get and have received, and then two, the results we've achieved where people go, wait a minute,
yeah,
you are getting those results without
yeah,
pounding your fist on the table, without um, you know managing your way through the circumstances with your team. And so I'd love your feedback on that, because I think you and I now, as we work together on this business and on this podcast, we're digging into what's brought us to this point. And it is that quest to share that perspective
yeah,
with our clients and with the world. So just a little
yeah.
on that from you.
I think people are really seeking connection and belonging, and um, this is just me speaking, from the gut and what I feel is kind of happening. I think there's just this shift in the old way of doing things and kind of people breaking out, you know, letting go of the armor and the chains and all the thou should be done this way and you should do it that way. And, and just saying, like, is there a different way that is just, um, it's just different, a different way to go about it that allows people to not put all the armor on and kind of mask themselves to really be seen so that they can connect at a deeper level. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to, this is what we talk about, right, Chris? I mean, as far as leading ourselves first, and then the next step going into leading others, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have expectations about whatever and hold people accountable and have the appropriate boundaries in place and all of that. It doesn't mean that you're soft, or I think we talked about nice. I mean, it's just more of being um, real, being able to see each other and not have to try and like figure out, like, almost like decode things, to first decode something before you can really get to the meat of what needs to be accomplished in whatever the situation is in the business or in life or what have you. So I just think it is really about connection and feeling like you're being seen so that you can work through the hard stuff of whatever that is.
I agree. And we were talking the other day about high performance. And I think the word I had used was aggressive targets. And
Which I had
you,
a whole reaction to.
well, yeah.
It's
So
like,
so
oh, that just sounds
please share
so
that.
aggressive.
Well, and say a little bit more about that.
Well, it is. You were we were talking about kind of the, going into leading others, part of the leader approach, and that, it is about, you still have to have those goals or those aggressive targets. And I was just having a reaction to the word aggressive because I'm like, I I don't want to be aggressive. Like that is not me. Like, now I have high expectations and I'm going to like, I want to accomplish great things, but in a way that is, um, in line with my most authentic self. And I don't, resonate with the word aggression, so that's why I was kind of like, I think we need to like maybe pick a more neutral word.
Well, to me, it was a perfect reminder because I think as we were talking, we were aligned, and then I used that word. And I think that it's a perfect reminder how our choice of words matter
Yeah,
with each other, but also matter as we work with others and as we, share the leader approach. Because what I intended was high expectations, was optimal performance, was having people work together
yeah,
with an engagement level that, not that it doesn't feel like work, but that you're completely in to the sweat equity that you're building together because you're all in. And it's
right,
kind of that state of flow where you're like, oh goodness, I didn't think we could achieve this level of performance together or work this well together as a
uh
team. And and then I think we started saying, "Oh yeah, we are aligned with that,"
right,
and that doesn't have to be aggressive.
right.
That
It's
doesn't
more
have to be
of
aggressive.
how
Yeah,
can you do that in a flow? I like the word that you use, in a flow state, and where you're just feeling you're lit up. You're like, hey, this is a it is maybe an aggressive target. It is a something that is far reaching, but can you say, okay, like that's where you have to go back to like leading self to say, okay, what is it within, me that will stretch me and make me think about this in a more creative, innovative way? How do I use my network, to think of things differently and get different perspectives to try and go after that target that's, pretty far reaching, but I'm doing it in a state of flow, and that's optimizing, what also gives me fulfillment and helps me to be a high achiever. Um, I think the language that we use is super important, and we're always wanting to give context too, maybe give like kind of use cases. So it's like, okay, this is what we're talking about, and this is how that looks. Like, let's go through an actual, example of how this would play out so people get it, because otherwise, they can we can grab onto a word and say, like, just more grind. They're just trying to get more out of us. They're just trying to, like, be degenerate generating instead of regenerative, in the resource, the people resources, within the company. So I, yeah, I think that's something that we're completely aligned on, and it helps in every conversation that we have to think about how, again, to say it in a way that really lands on people and gets them thinking like, yeah, this is the work that I want to do. How do I do that? How do I get into the state of flow when there
yeah,
are high expectations, which are always put upon us?
yeah. It's interesting. On Seinfeld, Jerry says to George at some point, he says, "The best revenge is living well," and George says, "Well, there's no chance of that." So, so for all of this, I feel like the fulcrum on this is authenticity.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
one thing that I had a reputation for, in my corporate life and in my corporate roles, was leveraging that authenticity. And so when things were challenging with, as an HR leader, a leader that I was supporting, or it was someone, a peer, or someone that was working for me, we would have that one-on-one, what they call, right, knee to knee conversation, where
Yeah.
we're really just two people speaking with each other. And one thing that I would often leverage and people would tease me about was kind of whisper to them and say, this is me. I think I've shared who I am with you and with the team, and we have an issue that we have to resolve in order for us to get over this challenge together. Whether it
Yeah.
was someone's performance, whether it was our relationship together, or it was their relationship with others, their inability to maybe break through on a project, because sometimes we're asking people to do things that are not in their sweet spot, and it's
Right.
intimidating. And they
Yeah.
walk out, and it's not Chris or Amanda asking them to do that work; it's the boss, and so
Right.
that can be an issue too. And so that's really that fulcrum for flow, in my opinion, is the authentic self. And that's where, once again, it goes back to, are you doing the work yourself? And look, I woke up this morning imperfect, maybe unlike you, Amanda,
Every
but I
day.
woke up, but I woke up imperfect. And so, that work that we talk about in leading self, it's a practice,
Hmm.
because it's never perfect. One of my favorite things, when I was practicing law, I had a great legal mentor who's this wonderful gentleman. And we were sitting one day in the law library, and I just told him, I said, I can't get this right. I'm trying to write this brief. I can't get it right. He just kind of said to me, he said, hey, kid, that's why they call it a law practice. You never get it right. It's about practicing law. And I love that. And I've often thought of that in my HR career, and now in our career where we're working as consultants, as it's a practice. We're
Yeah.
trying to put it on ourselves. We're practicing it with our partner organizations, with the people we're partnering with for coaching,
Right.
because you never get it right.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
some
It
thoughts.
is. It's about building those, it's the mental muscles, similar to, how you work your, body every day, or physical fitness. Um, it is it is whenever you think about like the leading others, it does go back though to really getting yourself squared away first, because you would have like the need to need conversations. I would call it the STE, Straight Talk Express, which was my way of asking permission to say, hey, can I give you some Straight Talk Express, and it was inviting, them to be me to me and say, hey, and why I'm sharing this feedback, why I want to share this feedback with you is because I think the world of you, and I want you to be your, reach your highest potential. There's some blind spots there, or what is it that we need to work on together, so we can, partner in whatever way is needed. And to have those courageous conversations, you have to clear all the conversations that are going on in your head, all the fear that's coming up, to say like, oh, this is uncomfortable to have this sort of open and transparent conversation. But I've really, committed to myself that I want to build those muscles to have those conversations, because I so desperately want people to be open with me, to create an environment that I can always kind of know that people are sharing with me exactly what they want to share and not held back by, whatever. So then on the flip side, I'm trying to also say, like, I want to provide that to individuals who want it. And so, how do I deal with whatever is maybe holding me back from having that conversation, which really makes you dig into what is it that is the fear that's there that, you have to deal with, so that you really can lead yourself and lead others in the most authentic way that doesn't also have you trapped in like, oh, I should have said this. I know I want to say that, that inner chitter chatter that again just like drains you of energy, that then keeps you from being in that state of flow and really focused on the big thing that you're wanting to accomplish. All of that chitter chatter is the inner work that you have to really deal with, or otherwise it's just going to drain you and not and keep you from working on the stuff that really matters.
Well, that I think that word focus and the chitter chatter being the noise or the
Yes,
drama, whatever you want to call it, is exactly the point we're making with each other, because when you're tuning out that noise, when you're able to really let go of that drama,
yeah,
and the individual is focused, you're focused, the team is now focused,
yeah,
your ability to work fast and work through problems to drive outcomes, to be a high performing team, now suddenly is you've taken off all the governors to that engine.
right,
You can go on a straight track, and you can be ticking off milestones, ticking off achievement levels, and people aren't even necessarily recognizing it from the outside, or even if they're on the express, because now it doesn't feel so bulky.
right,
You're just moving forward, and
right,
and that's, I think, so much of what um, uh, we wanted to talk about today,
yeah,
and that I think is a real valuable point as we continue to talk about the value of this framework and what we're working on together. So
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. I agree. I think we'll continue to refine it as far as that kind of return on investment, but um, it has to be personalized too. I mean, that is what makes it a little bit harder to really kind of put that like stamp on it, because uh, every person needs to kind of figure out what that is, what's holding them back, and where are they at on the journey. Where are they at as far as the being self-aware and having resiliency to the chatter or whatever. So it really requires a deep self-assessment, and I think that again, it's that takes work. So, but that's the work that you and I love doing, and we want to
Right.
continue to partner with people individually and in group and program settings. So it's exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And I know we're going to have guests joining us in future podcast episodes. And
Yeah,
to get people's perspectives, especially leaders that we both trust and admire, on these details of how they think about leading themselves and how they leverage their true selves in leading others, will be something I know we'll be digging into. So it's going to be really, really fun to learn from
yeah,
others, because there's a song called "The Best Imitation of Myself" by Ben Folds, and at some point you're starting and you're saying, all right, I'm just going to try to do the best imitation of myself, and that's a good
right,
place to start. And sometimes you can leverage that, and you can leverage that from others as well, because that can become a part of your toolkit in terms of how others think about their intellectual curiosity, or how they're taking care of themselves
exactly.
and how they're approaching others. So
Yeah,
excited
yeah,
for it.
no, that's exactly. So it'll be a great journey for us.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thanks, Amanda.
All right, thanks, Chris.
We'll talk next time.
All right, bye bye.
All right.
As you reflect on your own leadership experience, I encourage you to think about how you lead yourself first and what concepts you can begin to adopt today. We would love to hear from you on all things leader development, coaching, and engagement. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, follow me on Instagram at Chris_Curtin_HR, or reach out through the website at theconnectedapproach.com. Thanks again for joining. Until next time, be well, my friends.